What's good, everybody? Thank you for stopping by the Visitor channel for this upcoming game preview. If you want to stay updated in the world of college football, if you haven't done so already, pound that subscribe button, click that notification bell, and select all so you won't miss another video. Also, do like the video, it does help the channel grow, and give me your score prediction in the comment section below, even if you agree or disagree with my score prediction. With that being said, it is the annual world's largest outdoor cocktail party between Georgia versus Florida. Or if you want to call it something else, it is the annual Georgia-Florida game or the Florida-Georgia game. Florida comes into the game after playing their best game of the season against Missouri, and Georgia defeated Kentucky in an old-school Jefferson Pilot-style game from the early 1990s. With that being said, let's get started with the tail of the tape. As we look at the tail of the tape, this game looks like it's going to be tight. In terms of overall SP+, both Florida and Georgia change spots, but slightly. It is by a 0.1 margin. Georgia will face another top 5 offensive SP+ team in Florida, and Florida's defense has an advantage over Georgia's offense, which is not a surprise since Georgia's offense has underperformed relative to the talent they have offensively. SP+ has this game as Florida being favored by less than a point, so it is technically a pick'em, but if we were to go deeper into the percentages, Florida has a 50.2% win probability to win the game, but the smart guys in Vegas opened with Georgia as a 5-point favorite. If you were a fan of old school football, you thoroughly enjoyed that game. But I am not sure Georgia fans were overjoyed at seeing the offensive game plan. Now, we must be 100% honest when you assess this game. Maybe it was possibly due to George Pickens and Kenny McIntosh being out, so maybe their goal was not to stall out offensively and allow a team like Kentucky to get multiple possessions. When you look at the way the offensive line leaned on Kentucky in that opening drive, I think I would not mind utilizing that game plan if I was Todd Monken. Kentucky is a physical team. This is not like the Hal Mummy air raid teams from the mid-90s. This Kentucky team is there to beat you up in the trenches and chew up the game clock. Due to that physical style and some off-the-field instances, Georgia had a few players lead the game against Wildcats. Nose tackle Jordan Davis is listed as day-to-day. Defensive lineman Julian Rochester is out for the year with a torn ACL. Linebacker Quay Walker is questionable, but the biggest loss for their defense is Richard LeCount III. Now, he didn't leave the game against Kentucky, but he was involved in a car accident over the weekend, and he is still expected to make a full recovery. The LeCount injury is a big loss. You're talking about a senior quarterback at a secondary, and he's just as responsible for getting the right defensive calls. That communication and experience is going to be very difficult for Georgia to replace. I did not think Florida would hold Missouri to 17 points due to multiple players in the secondary not being available to play, but this was a complete game for Florida in my opinion. Kyle Trask and the Florida offense were efficient as usual. Now, they didn't have the best start, but they blew the game open in the second quarter. Part of that was due to the Florida defense playing lights out. And when I say lights out, I mean holding Missouri to a 28% success rate, stopping a ridiculous 40% of Missouri's carries at or behind the line of scrimmage, and Missouri's offensive line was not able to generate a push up front as they were held to negative 1.73 line yards per carry. Now, I've done a lot of box scores this year on Twitter, and I don't think I've ever seen that before. It was a solid defensive performance for the Gators, but I cannot leave this part out. Missouri did have their entire left side of the offensive line out and their starting right tackle out for the game. So, Florida, you got to give them credit for taking advantage of Missouri's lack of depth in this particular scenario. When Florida has the ball on offense, they are going to be tested against Georgia's rush defense. Georgia holds a heavy advantage against Florida's rushing offense, and Georgia's defense on passing downs is more efficient than Florida's offense in that scenario. The big surprise for me is Florida's offensive line yardage having a big advantage against Georgia's defensive line yardage. Florida is not Alabama offensively, which I believe is a good sign for Georgia, but these metrics are built on 5 games worth of data for Georgia's defense, and as I mentioned earlier, Georgia's going to be without key defenders that were responsible for the metrics being what they are. Now, you may want to divert your eyes if you are not a fan of the Georgia passing game. It should not be a shock to see Georgia having an advantage over Florida's rush defense and defensive line. The lack of explosive plays is a big concern for Georgia. Despite Florida's defense ranked 66 in total defense, they are 32nd in the advanced metrics when you adjust for their opponents in explosive plays given up. For me, the keys to the game are as follows. For Florida, they cannot do things that beat themselves. They can't turn the ball over against teams that hold a talent advantage over you. And I don't think they can start off slow against Georgia like they did last year when they scored 14 in the fourth quarter after Georgia practically controlled the game from start to finish. For Georgia, they have to win the line of scrimmage on offense, and it starts up front with Georgia. The offensive line must bring their A+ game, and the offensive line have to create those holes for Zeus White, Kendall Milton, and James Cook to run through, and they must give Stetson Bennett time to throw and get the ball to their playmakers. I think their plan coming into the game is going to be to chew up clock, keep the Kyles from Florida off the field, and test Florida's depth on the defensive side of the ball. So the computer model has Florida winning by the score of 32-28. The model has Florida gaining 5.69 yards per play, which is 76% of their usual yard per play average, and it has Georgia gaining 5.13 yards per play, which is 93% of their usual yard per play average. So Georgia has owned this series since 2017, and in those games, they had an overwhelming talent advantage, while Florida was an offensive, well, for a lack of a better term, mess offensively. This year, the optics are a little different. While you have the injuries Georgia is currently going through, I think they have recruited well enough to offset those losses from a physical perspective. However, replacing 5-star and 4-star players with a ton of experience under their belt, it's difficult to ask for a 4-star, 5-star freshman who doesn't have the type of experience to come in and just play lights out. That's a tough ask. It just really is. If you don't believe me, just ask LSU fans for an example for this season. If Florida is going to get Georgia this year, it has to be this Saturday. And this game is right there for the taking for Florida. And if they don't get it done this weekend, then I don't think a Dan Mullen coach team will ever do it. Even though at a general principle, I should pick Georgia to win this game because Dan Mullen does have a tendency to outcoach himself in big games like this. And I'm saying all of that, and I'm still going to take Florida to win this game by the score of 31-24. And I'll go ahead and say it, and if I'm wrong, then I will gladly make a recap video. I will eat my crow, and I will apologize to the Georgia fans for picking against them. So with that being said, that's going to be a wrap for another game preview. And let me know what your thoughts are in the game in the comment section below. Give me your score prediction and tell me why your team is going to win the game. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you would, just give the video a like. It helps the channel grow. And if you love college football as much as I do, hit that subscribe button if you want to stay updated with the latest previews and the occasional highlights. As with every video, thank you for taking your time out the day to watch.